I did just get the tech for my Battleship schematics, I guess you could say. So I figured that I might as well save everyone from my regular Let's Play that I've been doing on YouTube to actually make its own separate video on trying to design this bugger. Because it's going to take a little bit of time, because let's have a look at the slot, shall we? It is quite massive. When you compare it to the cruisers I have been using so far for my Let's Play, it is quite a significant upgrade, so I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time designing this thing, so I figured, hey, why not just go with its own separate video on trying to build this thing? Maybe even two separate variants there to kind of help complement the roles that I might need it for. So let's get started, shall we? So I think what I have been doing so far for the rest of my fleet is making them high speed and mobility based there, because if you look at my custom made Hornet design, there's all fusion armor based and it has relatively good mobility and speed. A little bit of shields, and then I also did the same for like my Corvettes, which are all fusion speed based with a little bit of shields, and my frigates as well. So they're all got relatively good mobility. Probably not the highest speed it could possibly be, considering the armor's hindering, well, lightening the load a little bit, even with plastic steel. But I was feeling like, at least for my first battle cruiser, I would like to try and keep that theme going. Since I have been more on the aggressive in my current campaign against the Cox affiliation there that you can see in the background with the green borderline, so I think a good way to start is to get a couple engines in, see how fast I can get it there, because I want to at least keep high value. But let's see, what was the Hornet there? 15 move and 23 turn. So I think I want to keep that a little bit around there if possible. So I'm just going to leave those engines on to start off with, and then watch how my speed is affected as I add everything else. And then of course, obviously, I'm going to need some power to kind of help equal it out. Give me a couple more so I have room to work with. So I think 8 will do to start off for now. That gives me a little bit. Man engineering, I have been this has actually been pretty useful for me, considering it reduces power consumption, and I've been using a lot of energy based weaponry. So I see myself putting it in at some point, but I'm gonna leave that till a bit later. I unfortunately have not unlocked the tech for the CIC command station, or whatever it's called there, to reduce the command points, so I am a bit limited on that. So only gonna have the standard bridge, which it only reduces command cost by 1. So I'm just gonna put that in there for good measure, because it is kind of required a little bit. So with that said, I got the power, I have the engines there, so let me actually get my shields in. I think I'm gonna put 3 class 1 shields to do like an all-around base shield set for the center, and then I'm also throwing a couple more as I have the space dictated on the rest. Because these are pretty much my backbone shield generators, because like I said, this is going to be pretty mobile based, so there's a high likeliness it's going to take a lot of damage from all angles, so these 3 are kind of essential. It instantly gives it a little bit over 60k health, so long as I have the power to manage it. And if possible, I may have to look into solar armor at some point to help with energy management if needed. So what else do I need to throw on? Power capacitors obviously, but I'll save that till the end. Bombs, don't really care about them, but Astrometrics Lab, that's interesting thought. Because what it does, not really caring about the research value of it, considering how expensive this thing's going to be anyway. It'd be more valuable put down like a cruiser, which is so much more cheaper. But it does increase my targeting for... yeah, it actually treats it as though it's 2 levels higher for the purpose of actually hitting stuff. So if I built this raw with no buildings or structures to enhance the experience of the crew, it would automatically act like it was level 3 for hitting stuff, when it's technically still level 1. So I don't think I want that. Fuel cells, I'm I don't think I need fuel cells on the battle cruiser. I could use smaller ships to be like a fuel supplier rather than have it based on its own. So I got that. Let me start getting the core design of what I want. So this is going to be a bit awkward design because the spinals are strictly front firing type of cannons there, so it has a bit of a limited arc considering how massive this thing's going to be. I want this thing to be close range and mobile, constantly hitting stuff, but it's not going to reliably use those weapons very often, so I'm going to have to think about how I want to do this. With the arc extend though, that gives it 50% of its radius, or half its radius there, so it can, that fixes that problem there, and I have been using that a lot. Don't really care too much about the range. Again, it's going to have speed to kind of help make up for that, and the range isn't even that noticeable. It's about 250 units, I guess they call, for range, and it only boosts up to like around 300, so it's relatively good range. It's about half that of a mass driver if I were to extend the range, so I'm going to be using these for a good while as I close in at least, so I definitely want some of those. So, how many? Let me throw a couple of these on. I don't know exactly how I want to go about that or how many I want to actually put on. I definitely want a good number of shields in the front maybe, but again it comes down to how much speed it'll have. And those already got the full 50% arc. I think I want to throw a couple more on the side so there's room. I'm just trying to figure out, do I want to leave space there for a shield or not? Probably do. So I think I'll leave it at that. That's a heavy amount of front weaponry, front punch. So I now want to see about the broadside. These antimatter cannons are what I'm looking at, and we got plasma cannons, but they're not nearly as potent, are they? 500 damage, and it's like a dot effect. And of course, antimatter cannons are superior with similar range. All my tech so far has been upgrading my energy weapons, so I do want to keep with that theme. But I haven't really been enhancing my beam weaponry so much. And what does the dual lasers look like? That's more like a, if I were to say, that'd be more like a point defense type weapons because it gets a good salvo of shots with a relatively good firing speed. Whereas the antimatter cannons are a nice 10-second duration, so I'm going to want to alternate between antimatter cannons and laser batteries, I think. But in the end, the purpose of this ship is to do a crap ton of damage to bigger cruiser ships, so I think it's going to have more emphasis on antimatter cannons and photon torpedoes, I think, as I get access to them, which I'm not quite there yet. Because those, I think, are nice close range missiles that I can use to do massive amount of damage, but that's later on down the road for maybe the Mark II. You know, in my luck, I may not even get access to that for, well, not really tech, but actually building one of these battleships, because with the resource costs, this thing's already 860 resources, and my cruisers are basically half that, and we just barely got started, so I'm not going to see a battle cruiser anytime soon, so this will be the original skeleton template, and as I get the new tech I will innovate on it until I'm ready to actually build one of these things. So with that said, let me get these shields on as well. 2 on the front. I don't think I'm going to need too much more excessively, because again, it's going to be doing a lot of broadside as well. Although so much of its firepower is already in the front, it would behoove me to kind of actually make it more frontal based maybe. Or I can cut back 2 of these antimatter cannons. Let's see how many side cannons I can get though. I do want to leave some room for the big laser batteries because it still needs some point defense. But traditionally, what I have been doing for my air fleets is kind of make them a little more specialized. Like, my corvettes are strictly designed to be like the point defense weaponry for the bigger ships. So I've been neglecting smaller weapons almost entirely on my Hornet cruisers that I've been using so far. But they still have a lot of laser batteries, so it almost functions just well without it. Even though it is basically a broadside ship to shoot at other cruisers in point blank range. So it has been working well in that regard. So I'm going to get 4 of these cannons on each side, try and save a little bit of room for the laser batteries because I still don't want to make it completely helpless. Especially with all the upgrades that do have the laser weapons, it definitely helps. So we're still pretty front heavy on weaponry considering the duration, and we're at 40 and 60 of my mobility, so I could sneak in more engines there, because with these 3 shield batteries the rear is relatively covered. And if I really need to, I could put armor on the back of these engines to kind of be like a extra buffer. So I don't know if is plasma cannons even worth it. Let's see, 8 tons and 4 cost was it production cost, so it is cheaper but not really all that lighter. So ultimately, it's not going to do much good when the ship's actually out. And not to mention, it is a slow projectile, so it's not going to hit anything small. And the range is, well, as I said, the range is about the same as the antimatter cannon. So I'm just trying to figure out what the hell can I put on here next. I don't think I need mass drives again, because I don't. It would fit in there nicely actually, but just to kind of soften up is really all it does. It's not really gonna be all that useful long term once it finally does get in range. If anything, it would more like be able to jam the target of a long range ship rather than actually have long range weapons myself. So I want to stick with the closer range, mid-range type scene. So I still want, well, I still want a little bit armor there, but I can't fit. I can fit 2 laser batteries on the front, but are they going to be useful? They got good range, but they're going to be firing randomly pretty much at max range for the first salvo, so it's not reliably going to hit anything, so that might not be the best idea. And range is pretty much the same for all these, since at 6 tons, what is that for the spinals? So it is a little bit heavier, but not much. And it's kind of just like that because it's the extra tonnage, because it is double the size as opposed to spinal laser cannons. So I'll stick with that. What do I have for defenses besides armor? Do I have any electronics I can utilize? Not quite. I do have the engineering, which, like I said before, it doesn't stack, does it? Let's see, it reduces power consumption by up to 50%, but it doesn't say anything about stacking or anything, so yeah, put that on there and it boosts power quite significantly. So I can still throw more stuff in, which is fine. But I think it's time to start throwing armor on. So give me some smaller shields maybe. Throw a couple smaller shields in as like to fill out the blank here. Or fill up these slots. What the hell am I saying? Fill up the blank. This is not like some kind of crossword puzzle or anything like that. Jesus. Don't think I want too much armor because it is pretty heavy, but I do want a little bit to kind of, as a failsafe when it, well actually let me have a good look at the shields. 8 tons. Yeah, it's basically half the tonnage for 8,000 armor, so it is a little more potent than these. it just requires power. So actually I could just forsake armor altogether. And maybe throw in a couple more of the armor, like really thin one layer armor plane on the side here afterwards. That could work. Otherwise, now everything has like a lot of armor on the sides, and the front it can take a beam, but is that where I want to put the armor plane? Let's see. Let me just compare this. This is like 18k for the plastisteel at 18 tons. Yeah, the shields are superior in almost every way, so I actually would want to put shields on the front. Actually, like I said again, I could just put more shields in the middle there and that would justify it. And that allows me to put more weapons on the outer slots as a bonus, so I could put an arc here to kind of enhance its range. And we're just cruising over 1k production, so starting to get a little bit expensive, but hey, that's what battle cruisers do, which is really no surprise. Now, so for some more point defense weaponry, because I got 4 laser batteries, got 4 antimatter on the side, I got 8 frontal guns, so that's gonna hit something hard. And we're looking pretty good so far. Still gotta watch the mobility. It's still well higher than the cruisers, but need to make sure it stays up there. And I haven't really been using my fighter base, so well, I guess with the lack of beam weaponry that I have been researching, because any beam weapons I get automatically are applied to my fighter base, and I have been neglecting beam weaponry, so it's probably not a good idea. Because a few of those can fit in there. It's probably not the best choice. But then again, as Operas, I do get a free extra fighter, so that might be an option for later on down the road. I'm curious, if I throw another one and there's a stack more? No, it does not. So it's only a one-time bonus. So to answer that question, so I could just throw a crap ton of shields on almost, because I almost don't know what else I want to throw on aside for a crap ton of defense weaponry. So is that what I want? Because I haven't had much issue with dealing with missiles just yet, so, but that can change at any time, in all honesty. And I want to keep this theme of benefiting from my laser weapons, because yeah, I got a 50% bonus there. I got blue lasers from my experimental tech, which lowers the tonnage, I think is what it does. I just don't see any kind of buff indicator for that. And I think there's another tech available to increase it by another 50%, so lasers are almost the way to go. Or even just anti-mana cans. Do I seriously want to put more anti-mana cans on? Does this have the armor or shield power to really justify it? It kind of almost does once I start throwing more in the middle. Because these are more fail-safes, kind of to buffer, to be the first line rather, I guess. While these covers at all areas, especially the engines. Because I don't expect that to take too much damage. So I'm going to throw it on there. Gonna throw a couple some bigger laser batteries on. I do feel, well, let's go without all the armor because I do want to maximize speed to an extent. And I'm gonna have a lot of power. And this is gonna be a lot of point defense weaponry, so this thing is gonna be a fortress almost. I don't know, I don't know if the number of shields that I have on currently is enough though. That's what I'm really curious about. It's really hard to judge, but it has a lot of front arc firepower. It all has the extension boost, so it's going to be consistently firing so long as it's constantly moving. So it should be alright. So we'll get some more weaponry on there. Start filling it out. Because everything, I guess, is pretty straightforward now. It's just filling out what slots I have left. And then just figuring out how to fill in the demands, because it's still got a lot of speed potential, and actually this thing's gonna go fast. Especially without the armor that would take up some of the slots. But let's see, we're up to 1,300 now. Still have plenty of energy. It even says I have an infinite amount of energy with all the power, fusion power I have on this thing. But is there anything I can throw on the front? Do I really want to put more shields on the front? Because that's where it's going to take the most damage in the starting engagement. But once it gets range, the sides are probably going to then take up... Actually, I think I do want more shields, because what happens here is once these first two shield generators are gone, these 5 or 6 that I have in the middle are going to start soaking damage, and I want to keep those with as much power as possible after the first phase, because the long term of the fight is going to be along the side arc, so long as it can keep moving, depending on how I position it, of course. That's going to be the big story. Because if I dive right in the middle of a fleet there, it's going to take a lot of damage from the side there, and then it'll just keep sweeping around, and the front is going to be pretty much neglected a lot of the time. So I want at least enough shield power to absorb all the front damage that I'll take in the first 15-20 or so seconds of the battles. Especially if it's a really big fleet, it could possibly lose all that shield power right away, and then it's just a sitting duck. So the front should all be about absorbing damage while pummeling them, killing a couple of soft targets with all these anti-mana cannons, and then just blast as it does passing runs. It's basically a giant battering ram with a ton of guns on the side. I wonder if even the PC is going to handle all that without dropping frames, because that's going to be a lot of weaponry. The one interesting thing I haven't considered is the fact... Oh, I'm wrong, because I was thinking maybe if I put armor on the front, that would help reduce the demands on the shields, but the shields is the first layer of defense. The shields would go first and then the armor would take damage, so I'm dumb. That was a stupid idea. So I still need to fill out these slots. Maybe it's probably safe to have some kind of flak weaponry, because also missiles are going to be very likely in the front, because that's where the most missiles are going to come in, and then it can possibly outrun a lot of the missiles after that if the speed keeps high. I don't think it even says what kind of speed is on these missiles, does it? No, it just says it has health, duration, number of shots, but it doesn't want to tell me the speed of them. So I have no way to know, to be honest. So I'm going to throw in some laser batteries. Again, they're going to be a lot of point defense here, because fighters and corvettes that can outmaneuver, they're still going to be swarming around despite speed. And I could put a lot of... I don't really need too much power capacitors, do I? Aside for when it starts losing them. Once it starts losing power capacitors, that's... or... Well, honestly, if I start losing these side there, it's actually going to have more power. So power capacitors are almost, okay, it is starting to take a drain there. It's still going to last for a good while. 200... Well, 53 seconds, so... I almost maybe think I want to put more little fusion powers there to kind of offset that. Cause same tonnage, and that is where that's really all I care about, is the tonnage. 7 versus 1 production, so yeah. Yeah, and instantly gives it infinite. Costs a little bit more, but considering how expensive this thing is already, I don't think that matters too much. So now it's to fill out everything, because I need ammo. 41 seconds ammo, that's gonna be something to be careful of. And we got ourselves a healthy amount. I wonder if that's too much ammo. Because I am thinking about... Oh, I probably need more arc on these flak. Actually, I got a good balance there. 4 of them have cover half my arc, and the last 2 here are more for frontal, so that should be fine. I'm okay with that. And how do we... Let's see, still says infinite power, so I might as well use up the rest of that energy. So still infinite, and we have engines to throw on for even more speed, because the speed is still really high. I'm excited if I can get this thing built, how fast and mobile's gonna go. It's actually gonna put a cruiser to shame. Actually, do I want shields on the back? Because it's gonna be turning, so better safe than sorry, I think. I just don't know. I'm assuming these shields will go first before the ones in the center start taking all the damage, so I think that's a good idea. But honestly, I'm not sure about that. To fill the last of the engine slots. Whoops. Well, there's one way to cut your engine speed in a hurry. So this one has 4 slots available. It is expensive as hell. But hey, it has a lot of durability. There's a lot of power still left to it to manage everything. It's what you would expect in a flying fortress. So it is gonna hurt. It is questionable with the flak cans, but they are relatively potent at killing clusters of missiles from like dedicated missile boat ships, and of course a swarm of fighters that are clumped together, I think. So it should work out relatively well if it does have like a pseudo AoE effect, because it does have proximity sensors that explode like traditional type of flak, so it should be pretty good. And now we go with the process of figuring out what to name this thing, so I'm gonna have to cut this out as I spend time trying to figure out the naming process, because I am horrible with that. Alright, after browsing around the website, finding something that fit the theme of what I was looking for, I actually managed to finally name it the Hercules beetle, which seems appropriate given to how potentially menacing the beetle looks in real life there with the massive horn. So I think it suits the theme there. So that is one battle cruiser done. I don't actually know how long exactly it took, but that is my brand new battle cruiser at 15,000 resources as opposed to the stock heavy hiver at 1,300. So it is a little more expensive. So we'll see if I regret this anytime soon. So thanks to anyone who was crazy enough to watch me just build a ship. Hopefully we do it again.